Welcome to the Ben and Lauren Show. I'm Benjamin, and here's Lauren, and it's another night.
It's been another week.
It's another late night. Time is it, like 11:30, 12?
Better than some nights. Our kids ran around outside all day, wore themselves completely out, had a bath, went to bed. Daniel fell asleep in like 5 minutes.
I took a nap today.
Yep.
I'm still feeling pretty tired. We're not going to talk about sickness this episode, but we'll get it out of the way.
Gotta talk a little bit about it.
Basically, Lauren and I finally got it. We thought we were going to get through this without any symptoms, but Lauren and I both about the same time started getting sore throats and achiness, and today's kind of day 2 of that, day 3.
No, we got that Wednesday evening, so we're several days.
So we're hoping this is the last.
I'm feeling much better. I know you're still feeling a little yucky, but I feel almost back to normal.
I'm not feeling that great. So
This is one of those weird viruses where you have a stomach section and a respiratory section, and you can't find that described anywhere on Wikipedia or anywhere you look up a stomach virus, but we've experienced it before.
it feels like 5 illnesses in one.
Yeah, it happened before, right before our wedding. My whole family came down with a stomach virus, and like as soon as everyone got better, everyone all got a cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, where do we pick up this second thing? And at the time, I surmised that might be attached to the stomach virus, but we didn't really have good proof. Well, this time, we haven't been anywhere for 2 weeks. There is no cold virus that does that. So
Right, we've been home.
We know for sure this one is actually attached. So we get... Anyway, so Ben and I got the whole... It goes like into an instant sinus infection and...
Basically waking up with the painful neck and the sinuses and...
Oh, joy.
It's, yeah. Should we describe it to everyone in graphic detail?
No.
Okay.
We already did enough sickness
All right.
talk. But the good news is, this week, I feel like our kids are better.
Mm-hmm.
They are running around like normal. They have normal appetites. All the respiratory symptoms for them have gone away.
Now,
Ben and I are getting better.
Abigail especially, she was having a hard time.
Ugh, Abigail. She got stage 2 as hard as she got stage 1.
So basically, I was feeding her ice chips or Pedialyte chips every 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah, there was the one night her throat hurt so badly she wouldn't drink anything.
No.
So she started getting dehydrated again.
She would cry.
She would, well,
Every time I
actually,
gave her a Pedialyte chip, she would cry.
Thursday, I understood it because my throat got so swollen I couldn't swallow. And, you know, when you're pregnant, you're not supposed to take any medication. Everything could cause some problem. So I feel really reluctant to take anything. And I got to the point where I actually did take Tylenol.
It'll be okay.
I'm sure it'll be fine. Because it's like I can't function. Can't swallow. I'm in the middle of, I have to make dinner.
I've had a couple of those.
Yeah.
Not Tylenol, I take the ibuprofen.
So Abigail, we did spend one night where Ben set the timer and we were up way late into the night because he started giving her Pedialyte every 15 minutes and she'd get mad at him that he was waking her up.
She'd be sleeping and I'd wake her up and I'd say, I'm sorry, Abigail, you gotta wake up. Gotta take a nice chip. You know, she was cranky.
She was much better the next morning though.
Yeah.
It worked.
It worked.
And today was our first 80-degree day.
It was gorgeous out today.
It felt so nice.
Yeah. Michigan's cold.
We even got a nice rainstorm right in the middle of the day.
I slept through that.
Yeah, our kids all enjoyed it. They sat on the porch and they just watched it rain. It was a very peaceful day.
My wife helped me out today because I was tired, but I wasn't sleepy. And I was on my phone. And at some point, Lauren comes in and says, you know, you got to turn the phone off if you're going to take a nap. So I did. I turned the phone off, and I'm like laying there like, well, then I have nothing to read.
Yeah.
I think, but it's like, that's the point. And it was
And then he went to sleep and he slept like a log for like 3 hours.
I slept really heavily, yeah.
It was probably good.
I
but
needed it.
he kept going to bed because he was going to take a nap, and I kept coming in and he's reading on his phone. And it's like, you are not going to... And I was really hoping he would take a nap earlier so that he could get up and watch the kids and I could take a nap.
Well, last night I woke up around, 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I think I was up for about an hour. I was jumping on the trampoline in the middle of the night.
He was trying to loosen up his lymph nodes.
Yeah, trying to...
So I wake up, it's like, where's Ben? And then I hear the trampoline in the other
It's a little
creak,
trampoline.
Creak. I'm like, Is he out jumping on the trampoline?
That's what I was doing. Some people go for late night snacks. I go for late night trampoline
some
jumping.
Some people go for late night walks too. That was pretty funny. I went out in the door and looked at him, and there he is jumping on the trampoline, and I thought, well,
there's worse things.
Okay, I'm going back to bed.
It was very strange, the sound of the trampoline in an empty, quiet house. Choo, 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 choo.
You can tell we've been shut up for a few weeks.
Yeah. So we got a special beverage.
Well, you have a special
I have
beverage.
a special beverage that I brought up. This is made with our espresso machine.
I think that you would call this a hazelnut cappuccino.
I don't want to tip it too much, but yeah, it's got this really nice foam, milk foam on it. So I just have to describe it to everyone as far as what it tastes like.
Oh, okay.
Decaf coffee, hazelnut, with a nice foamy milk on the top.
Well, we found a nice decaf coffee that actually goes through the espresso machine very nicely. We've been playing with our espresso machine this week since, don't have a lot else going on.
Well, it was between that or a Keurig machine. I'm always trying to make the perfect cup of coffee. And whenever I go next door to my parents' house, they've got a Keurig. And so often I get a really good cup of coffee from that machine. So we were going to get a Keurig, but they're expensive.
I think we described this back when you got the espresso
I think you're right. And the K-cups are expensive.
That's really what pushed us over the edge.
So we decided, we would go to Partridge Creek, and they had a big espresso machine there, and they gave free samples of the espresso machine.
We talked about that, too, the $3,000 espresso machine.
Well, it all depends if how many Ben and Lauren shows people have ever watched.
Okay, it's a recap.
So anyway, we ended up getting an espresso machine for my birthday, January, and we have been having a lot of fun with it. It's great.
It turns out it's actually quite tricky to learn how to make the milk foam. You have to have just the right technique.
Mm-hmm.
And since I don't do coffee very well, I've been making other drinks, and one of the things to learn is how to make milk foam.
And she's getting good at it.
Yeah, it's turning out better, but I really enjoy that.
Every so often in the morning, I'll hear that espresso machine turning on. I'm like, ooh, Lauren's making me some coffee. She does. She's a good wife. She makes me espresso sometimes in the morning.
I love you.
I love you too. It helps me get moving in the morning.
Yeah, between the two of us, you are not a morning person.
No. Well, right now I'm not a night person either.
Well, that's just today. Normally, you'd be up till 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I have a tendency to stay up late. So, what else did we do this week?
Well, you did the final racking on our dandelion wine.
Oh, yeah, one more prop.
Which actually now looks like it might be dandelion wine.
There we go. All that fruit's gone, because that fruit was looking kind of nasty after a while. We re-racked it a couple times. You can see a little bit of a sediment on the bottom, but it's starting to clear up. And
it's starting to smell like something you might want to taste.
Yeah, and maybe in a week or two we can start bottling it. We'll see. But I'm excited about it. My first dandelion wine.
So I've been really interested watching it because this batch of wine was totally different than the first one we tried. Well, just finding out the whole thing about the yeast, you always want to use the whole yeast packet. That was pretty interesting.
One adventurous thing that happened this week, we had a tornado warning.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did last Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever it gets warm here, the first couple times we get a warm day, we usually get a bad storm.
Mm-hmm.
Abigail asked me why that was, and I said, well, it has something to do with cold air and hot air, I think. I really should look up some videos for her on why.
I think it just has to do with the cold pressure, high pressure. I think it's low pressure, high pressure, isn't it? Or is it cold? Anyway.
I'm not real clear on why it happens, but it always, whenever we get a really warm day in spring, it gets really, really windy, and we typically have some bad storm. And I can't count how many Memorial Days we've had a bad storm on Memorial Day. So last Sunday we got a tornado warning in the middle of the day.
Yeah, it was one of those things where we were outside and we were doing yard work. Next thing you know, we hear the sirens going off. We're like, well, time to get in the basement.
And there's two schools of thought around here when tornado alarms go off. One school of thought is you kind of pull everything up close to the house and you go about your normal business, because most of the time when a tornado alarm goes off, there is no tornado.
There was no tornado.
When you have little kids, though, you have a situation where if you suddenly did notice that the wind was picking up and things were looking bad, you may have a hard time getting everybody down into shelter in time.
So we closed all the windows, shut the garage door, kind of battened everything down, and
pulled it. The kids had a bunch of their bikes out on the sidewalk, and I pulled them in because if you do get a tornado, one of the worst things that can happen is if you have loose stuff in your yard, it'll get blown through your windows.
Daniel was sleeping, right? We woke him up.
Yeah, I scooped him up.
So we all scurried down into the basement, and they were all pretty cheerful about it.
Well, the kids were very cheerful because we raided our downstairs pantry for a snack.
Yeah.
So they had a picnic sitting on the floor in the basement.
So I figured this was a special occasion, so I opened up one of my cranberry wines that's been down there for a while. What would your review be on the cranberry wine?
Well, you opened up the one that you watered down.
Yeah, it's not the real cranberry wine.
It basically tasted like cranberry apple juice.
It was very sugary. Didn't have a lot of alcohol in it.
It didn't really taste like much of anything. But
Kool-Aid.
I'm not surprised because that one was about half water.
Yeah. But I figured might as well open it up, special occasion. It's resealable. So we only had like a tiny bit of it.
We tried it.
But that was a big a big event.
And we did not get a tornado. In fact, we didn't even get a thunderstorm. It was just a rain shower.
But the temperature dropped.
It did. That was our last nice warm day, really, was that day.
Yep, until today.
And today it got to be 81.
Which is hot for us.
We realized Daniel has been wandering our yard, just looking at everything, poking into everything. And we realized that last summer he had just learned to crawl by the end of the summer. So this is his first summer.
Oh, and he loves it.
As far as he's concerned.
He loves it. We went for a walk the other day. That was a great adventure for him.
Didn't he stop in the middle of the sidewalk and put his arms up in the air and go, ah!
He loved going for a walk around the block, and he was pokey.
Yeah, he looked at everything. He would stop,
and he'd point at things, and he'd talk about it, and he was just having a blast. And it was this big, long sidewalk. He could just walk and walk and walk and walk and walk.
Unfortunately, now he really wants to be able to get on the sidewalk and just take a walk.
By himself.
So a neighbor called Mom the other day. It scared the life out of me because Mom comes running over going, Daniel's across the street in front of the Teschke's house. And the Teschke's live almost a whole block all the way down the street. And I was in the bedroom doing my hair, but I was standing in front of the window because Daniel had been playing in the sandbox all morning, and I had just seen him like 30 seconds before, and I could not see him when Mom came over. So I knew he was not in view. And I thought, he must be really fast to have gotten all the way down the street and across the street by himself, but it still scared me pretty badly.
I don't think he's ever crossed the street before.
Oh, but he does have a tendency, if he gets out in the front yard, he walks straight toward the street.
Yeah.
Which is why he's not allowed in the front yard. And
unsupervised,
if he's in the backyard, I watch him too. So.
But you looked out there and he was nowhere near.
Well, no, it turned out that he had gone into the front yard with Elena. Elena had gone in the front yard, and it had rained that morning. And she likes to take a stick and go fishing in a puddle that's on the sidewalk in front of our neighbor's house, and Daniel had gone with her. So they were standing with their rain boots on in the middle of the puddle with sticks, fishing in the puddle. They
were practically in front of our house.
Yeah, they were not. They were right. They were still not really where I wanted them to be, but I had been watching them. And it was probably only a matter of a few seconds before I would have noticed that he wasn't in the sandbox anymore.
But he was not down the street.
No, thankfully he was not down the street. Still, it's a little scary because, if your neighbors start calling you saying, well, your kids are unattended.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back when Ben was growing up in this neighborhood, these neighbors all allowed their kids to be wandering around the block, riding their bikes, going everywhere. But these days, you can't let your kids go because even if they are safe, people feel like you're not watching them and you're being careless with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just that perception is
There's
dangerous
definitely
for them.
A neighborhood watch in effect.
Although I reminded myself and Ben that had Daniel really been across the street and all the way down the street, we would have been very, very grateful to get that call.
We would have.
As it was, I about had a heart attack.
And I heard about it after. Daniel was already back in the house, right?
Yeah, he stayed tomato steak to you the rest of the afternoon. I actually did not let him go outside anymore because he wasn't supposed to go in the front yard, and he knew it.
He knew, too.
Yeah, he knew.
He wasn't going back outside again.
So he got stuck inside for the day.
But he and I,
yep.
he took a little nap on my shoulder, I think, after that. It's his favorite spot.
So maybe one of our blessings of the week. Daniel did not cross the street and walk down the street.
Blessing is that we're recovering from this illness. I hate to bring it up again.
I'm trying to think of other things besides illness. I mean, I know it's preoccupied both of us, but...
So we're hoping tomorrow to get some stuff on the garden done. We're going to be expanding the garden.
I really want to get the garden in.
It's getting later and later.
It's getting later. Now, this is really the first week I would have been comfortable planting anything outside. It's been going down to 40, 43 degrees at night, every night.
It's funny. I've never thought of myself as living, like, up north. But when you know people down south, suddenly you feel like you're up north. Everyone's talking about how hot it is and how they're planting.
But we've had a really, really late cold spring.
We did. But it just seems so much colder up here.
We typically have 4 or 5 months of winter and cold, and then it starts warming up. This month we've had 7. So, or this month, not this month, this year.
So it looks like our cherry trees are going to be producing this year, hopefully.
I don't know about the tart cherry tree. I think that the tart cherry might have fire blight.
So we have a couple mysteries to solve on that.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a dose of the probiotic spray because that's worked really good on the early blight on other stuff.
We also have the cell suds and the neem oil.
And I wanted to put neem oil on everything because last year our sweet cherry tree just got inundated with those little caterpillars. We couldn't eat any of the cherries. They were so full of worms.
We also have a whole bunch of rabbit manure. That's going to help our garden out quite a bit.
And we got Bucky Bloom, the cow manure. So we have all this stuff all ready to go on our garden, and we just got to get it out there.
Get on there. We need to get some compost. That's really
So that's
the
our
missing ingredient.
Hopefully tomorrow we're going to be working in the yard. We're expecting it to be about 73.
Perfect. I got some weeding to do. Got a lawn to mow. We're already planning tomorrow.
Well, you know.
Planning the new week.
Maybe we can have barbecue. Mom and Dad invited us to come over next door for Memorial Day because we can't go anywhere else. And since Mom just got sick last night, they can't go anywhere else either. So we're all stuck home together. At least we're stuck home together.
Yeah, we are. We try really hard to not spread illnesses, but
sometimes you just
can't help it.
Hey, Mom bought the kids some tadpoles this week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we saw those today.
They have this little aquarium, and Mom and Dad went to the fish store, and they bought some tadpoles for it. Our kids have never seen tadpoles, and they were so fascinated. But I had 8 little hands I was trying to keep out of the tank because Elena wanted to dump dirt in it. Daniel had a stick and wanted to go fishing in it. And Abigail and Susanna reached in and were trying to grab the tadpoles. Abigail actually caught one of them. So she's sitting there with the tadpole in her hand. She goes, "Look, Mama, I caught it." Well, she's not squeamish at all, except 10 minutes later she got water splashed on her arm. One of the other kids splashed her, and she's in tears because now she's wet.
She doesn't like wet clothes.
So, you know, she'll pick up any bug she finds. She brings me worms to look at. She'll catch tadpoles barehanded.
She likes pill bugs. Those are her favorite.
But don't you dare get her clothes wet.
Does she know that pill bugs roll into a ball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her and Susanna love to bring me the pill bugs all rolled up. To show me, "Look, Mom."
It's a ball.
Abigail brought me one that was gigantic and then brought another one that was a little tiny one. She goes, "Look, this one's like a baby and this one's all grown up."
We got our first mosquito in the house. Breaking news.
That's a momentous day. Ben is a mosquito magnet.
I don't like mosquitoes.
Basically, if there's a mosquito within 10 houses of our house, it will come in the house to bite Ben. He's like one of those lights, you know, you put up on the side of your patio to attract the mosquitoes.
And they like to buzz my ear.
I think Susanna takes after you.
Yeah?
They like her too.
So what else? We read the Torah portion this
year. I don't think a lot else happened this week.
No, it was a pretty quiet week.
We basically focused on getting everybody back on their feet.
And as soon as we get the children back out on their feet, we got to get through it.
Well, thankfully you and I weren't laid out like they were.
Right.
We had sore throats. We were not in the bathroom, getting sick.
Thankfully. So we read the Torah portion, and we learned about the Jubilee year. Learned about the Sabbath, the yearly Sabbath. 6 years you should work the land, and on the 7th year let the land rest. It's interesting how God has a covenant with the land, just like he has a covenant with the people.
And the land has to rest every 7 years.
Yep.
And also, just as Shavuot is 50 days after Passover, the year of Jubilees is a 50-year count. It's every 50 years.
Right.
But what's very interesting about the year of Jubilee that I'd never noticed before is that you signaled the beginning of the year by blowing trumpets on the 10th day of the 7th month, which is
the Day of Atonement.
The Day of Atonement, which is usually a very quiet and somber day. You blow the trumpets on the first day of the 7th month, and then you have this day of, great awe and respect, which is the Day of Atonement. But you don't usually make a big racket with trumpets on that day.
No, the text is not talking about on the Jubilee year. It's talking about every year. Blow the trumpet. It's a memorial by the blowing of trumpets.
No, the blowing of trumpets on the 10th day of the 7th month was to signify the beginning of the year of Jubilee.
Right.
Setting the captives free, canceling all debts. And it occurred to us to wonder, if the fall feasts, the fall days, the spring days, Messiah fulfilled those days the first day he came, or at least one fulfillment of them happened at that time. Passover was the day he died, first fruits was the day he resurrected, Shavuot, the summer festival, was the day that that the Holy Spirit came on the disciples. So now we have the fall days. We have the Feast of Trumpets, and we have the Day of Atonement, and we have the Feast of Sukkot.
Right.
So we were wondering,
first day, 10th day, and the 15th day to the 22nd day.
What is the significance of blowing the trumpet on the Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement for the year of Jubilee, the year of the canceling of debts and the release of all captives?
You have to wonder. I was theorizing that the Day of the Lord is the 10 days between the Day of Trumpets and the 10th day of the Day of Atonement.
I said it's kind of peculiar that the Day of the Lord would be 10 days long, but...
It is, that is abnormal. But you would think Day of the Lord, it's not days, plural, but I think it's going to be an unusual time.
Well, we've speculated before that because we're told by Paul keeps talking about the trump that sounds, the last trumpet. And if the first feasts are about Jesus' first coming and the fall feasts are about his second coming, is it possible that he would be arriving with the sound of great trumpets on the Day of Trumpets? It would make sense. But what if he was arriving on the Day of Atonement? Or what does blowing on the Day of Atonement have to do? So anyway, that was speculation.
Speculative.
We have no answers.
I've heard it also said that when Yeshua entered the synagogue after the 40 days in the wilderness, when he took the scroll in the book of Luke, and he says that this is the acceptable year of the Lord, that he was announcing the Jubilee year, that was a Jubilee event. And there's a custom or a tradition that Yeshua went into the wilderness. He was baptized on the 1st of Elul, that's the first day of the 6th month, and then he was in the wilderness 30 days plus 10 days for the 10 days of the days between trumpets and the Day of Atonement. And then the 10th day of the 7th month is the day that he entered into the synagogue and announced the Jubilee year.
I have some problems with that, though. The reason they asked him to read the scroll when he came back to Nazareth is because he had been heard to have been performing miracles, and he had already done other things besides having gone into the wilderness and come straight back out. So there's a bunch of time that would not be accounted for. He'd already been to the wedding in Cana.
No, the wedding in Cana was after. That was between that event and Passover, because immediately after the wedding in Cana was the first Passover. first Passover event that he went to, and he chased the money changers out. And it says the very first of his miracles was at the wedding at Cana, and then he went to Passover.
Then why did they ask him to read?
That's a good question.
Because it seems to
me...
He
was known as a rabbi. People were calling him rabbi.
But he hadn't had any time to gain that reputation. If he'd gone and gotten baptized, spent 40 days in the wilderness, and just shown up in Nazareth the day he comes back out of the wilderness, the time doesn't line up. We're missing, there's time that happened that's not included. He'd met John's disciples already.
I don't know.
It doesn't seem like there's enough time.
Yeah, and the question is, when did he become a rabbi, so to speak? When was he officially recognized as a rabbi?
Right. Well, because we hear that no one really seems to have known who he was before he goes off into the wilderness after baptizing. So suddenly, he gets baptized by John.
Disappears
he comes back
for 40
days later, and all of a sudden he's a rabbi? He's
famous.
Well known, he's famous, everybody in his town wants him to read the day he comes back out of the wilderness on the 10th of... I mean, it seems like there's...
Yeah, it does seem odd.
Some problems with that.
Well, that's tradition for you. Tradition overlooks...
There's some difficulties.
Traditions sometimes overlook these difficulties.
Well, I don't know. My practical side says, now, wait a second here.
So that was our Torah portion that we read last night, right?
Yes.
And, the girls were coloring. There's a Torah portion coloring book that we got our eyes on that I think the girls would really like.
They might enjoy that.
It actually has a different picture to color each Torah portion.
My difficulty with them wanting to color is they want to color with mama. So they want me to get out a coloring book and the pencils and color with them. Well, when you're coloring on a piece of paper that's only this big, there's not room for me and 3 girls to color on that. And what am I going to do with Daniel wants to color too? So
Daniel needs to be with Daddy.
Well, we're going to have a new baby.
I know.
This changes the dynamic.
Oh, man. How are we going to do it, Lauren? We could do it. We'll do it.
Well, this is the first baby that we're out of hands. You've got 2 hands full. I've got 2 hands full. The 5th baby.
No more hands.
No more hands.
We're going to start using feet.
Oh, great. You just stuck your foot in the baby. Nice.
Well, with that nice footy ending, at least I'm not taking a knife and shaving off pieces of it. You didn't see that video.
No, I didn't see that video.
It was so nasty. All right, well, on that wonderful note, I think we should say good night. Good night, Lauren.
Good night, Ben.